Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon, Associate Professor, Department of English, VSSD College, Kanpur. We are discussing Paper 3, 19th Century English Literature. And this module, module number 6, discusses Byron as a poet. In this module, we will discuss Byron as a romantic poet and 3 of his poems, She Walks in Beauty, My Soul is Dark, When We Two Parted. Now, before I start discussing Byron, I will like to discuss 2 quotes. George Gordon Byron, 6th Baron Byron FRS, commonly known simply as Lord Byron, was an English poet and a leading figure in the Romantic movement. It is there in Wikipedia. The next one is by Hoggle, and he said, Lord Byron was the most controversial poet of his time. He virtually invented the idea of romantic irony, or the idea of the hero as a tragic figure who is born to desire a transcendence that can never be achieved. Unquote. So Byron, who is a very, very important figure of romantic poetry, who joins the group of younger romantics with Keats and Shelley, believed that he who loved not his country can love nothing. He was born on January 22nd, 1788. He was the son of Captain John Byron and his second wife, the former Catherine Gordon. For education, he was sent to a private school in Dulwich and in 1801 in Harrow. He wrote several poems there. After school, he went to Trinity College, Cambridge. Byron's mother, Catherine Gordon, was a Scottish heiress, daughter of James I of Scotland, and his father, Captain John Mad Jack Byron, as he was known, accepted Scottish customs of his wife. Now, why we are discussing Byron's mother is very important. The life of Byron, it revolved around his mother as well, and it was greatly influenced by the character of his mother. Byron was given his mother's Scottish surname. Byron's father, John Byron, was a romantic philanderer who courted Catherine and captured the heart of wealthy Catherine only because of her wealth. And he quickly spent her 17,000 pounds inheritance quickly. His father died when Byron was just 3 years old. So the whole command was there in the hands of his mother. She was unusual, who not only influenced his life but also his thoughts and even his behavior. Catherine was overly affectionate, even indulgent, and sometimes abusive too towards his only son. On August 1st, 1811, when she died, on her death, Byron wrote, I quote, Thank God, her last moments were tranquil. I am told she was in little pain and not aware of her situation. I now feel that we can only have one mother. Peace be with her. Unquote. Like his father, Byron spent his youth in the pursuit of women just to impregnate them and abandon them. Byron, who was exceedingly charming, he married Annabella and they had one daughter, Ada. Byron probably fathered a daughter, Medora, with his half-sister, Augusta. One son was also born to a servant named Lucy, and finally he sired another daughter, Allegra, with Claire Clairmont, Mary Shelley's stepsister. To understand Byron's poetry, it is important to understand his nature as well. He was emotional and radical by nature and religiously skeptical, while his wife Annabella was logical, pious, even-tempered and very sober. This contrast could not be matched for long, and Byron's marriage failed because he was verbally abusive too, and he had continuous connections with other ladies and Augusta as well. One more important thing that contemporary talked about Byron was that he was also suspected of homosexuality. When his wife came to know about this, she could not manage with it, and the reason for their marriage was not true love, but in order to escape from growing debt and rumor, he married Annabella, who was said to be the likely heiress of a rich uncle. So the marriage that was contemplated on 2nd January 1815, and after the birth of the daughter Ada in December of that year, Byron's continuing obsession with Augusta made their marital life a misery, and finally they were legally separated. Byron developed a violent fever and died on 19th April 1824 when he was just 36 years old. His death was mourned by progressive people all over. Lord Byron on his deathbed was painted by Joseph Dennis. One can notice the sheet covering his misshapen right foot. This misshapen right foot was always noticed by Byron, and he tried to express that he was not much concerned with that. With Byron, there is one very important epithet that is attached. It is Byromania. What is this Byromania? How it is connected with Byron, and what is its importance? During the life of Byron, he enjoyed unlimited name, fame and fan following, not only for his writings, but also for being so handsome and for being a confessional writer. The extent of his quick fame after the publication of Childe Harold Pilgrimage in 1812 is unimaginable. And the fan following is not only of ladies but of males as well. This was known as Byromania, and this term was coined by his own wife. The vampire metaphor applied by MacDater is possibly the best model for explaining Byron's response to Byromania. Another word that you will come across while reading Byron is Byronism. Bertrand Russell, in his History of Western Philosophy, gives a chapter to Byron, not because he was a systematic thinker, but because Byronism established an outlook and a stance towards humanity, and the word that entered 19th century philosophy and eventually helped to form Nietzsche's concept of the Superman, the hero who stands outside the jurisdiction of the ordinary people, of good and evil. Byron, because of his physical beauty, because of his mannerism, became so popular with the ladies of the town that sometimes it became difficult for him to handle this popularity. As I told you that by birth Byron suffered from a deformity in his right foot, but he was so concerned that to prove himself a normal man, he crossed Dardanelles, that is a narrow strait in northwestern Turkey, in 1809. It is a very narrow, but he crossed it, and just to gain confidence. Byron's exile from England and his excommunication from British culture. These two things were responsible for his friendship with many literary figures of his time like Shelley, Monk Lewis, etc. After a few more affairs and a lot of travel, Byron finally settled in Italy at the age of 30. Then Byron began his long, witty, satiric mock epic Don Juan, which ensures his fame for centuries to come. Afterwards, he returned to England in 1811 and faced massive debts and death of his close friends. He is regarded as one of the greatest British poets and remains widely read and influential. He travelled widely across Europe, especially in Italy, where he lived for 7 years. Later in life, Byron joined the Greek War of Independence, fighting the Ottoman Empire, for which many Greeks revere him as a national hero. He died 1 year later from a fever contracted when he was just 36 years old. Now, there are some points which must be considered while considering Byron, that often described as the most flamboyant and notorious of the major romantics, Byron was both celebrated and castigated in life for his aristocratic excesses. Some other features like huge debts, numerous love affairs with people of both sexes, rumors of a scandalous liaison with his half-sister, and self-imposed exile were much talked about. We consider Byron as a romantic poet because in his poetry and in his life, he tried to imbibe all the tenets of romanticism. He created an immensely popular romantic hero who was defiant, melancholy, and haunted by secret guilt, for which to many he seemed the model. His multifaceted personality found expression in satire, verse, narrative, ode, lyric, speculative drama, historical tragedy, confessional poetry, dramatic monologue, serio-comic epic, and voluminous correspondence. He wrote all this in Spenserian stanzas, heroic couplets, blank verse, terza rima, ottava rima, and vigorous prose. In his dynamism, sexuality, self-revelation, and demands for freedom for oppressed people everywhere, Byron captivated the Western mind and heart as few writers have done. He has presented his image and name as the embodiment of Romanticism. Now let us talk about poetic technique of Byron. He was a romantic poet, no doubt. He had a specific idea about nature and life. And as poetic technique is concerned, he has used several poetic devices to express the themes of his poems. He used a figurative language and other devices which serve to enhance the meaning of the poem very frequently. He mostly wrote epics and lyric poems. He employed meter, anapest, iambs, blank verse, heroic couplets, hudibrastic verse, terzian, quatrains, and rhyme royal in his diverse poetry. His life can be divided into 3 stages: 1788 to 1809, then 1809 to 1816, and then 1816 to 1824. He is one of the greatest poets of Romantic era. His life, divided into these 3 periods, tell us many things. Byron's grotto in Porto Venere, Italy was named in his honor because, according to a local legend, he meditated there and drew inspiration from that place for his literary works. He said, A mistress never is nor can be a friend while you agree you are lovers, and when it is over, anything but friends. He again said, love will find a way through paths where wolves fear to prey. Many biographers have written biography of Byron. The most recent biography of Byron is by Fiona McCarthy, and the name is Byron, Life and Legend. Two other recent biographies are Benita Isler's Byron's Child of Passion, Fool of Fame and Phyllis, and Groscott's Byron, The Flawed Angel. One more comes by Elizabeth Longford's in the name The Life of Byron. That is also very important. Whenever you go through Byron, not only his poetry, but his other works as well, the character presented by him is different from rest of the poets. He is known as the Byronic hero that has become a legend afterwards. The Byronic hero presents an idealized but flawed character whose attributes great talent, great passion, a distaste for society and social institutions, a lack of respect for rank and privilege being thwarted in love by social constraint or death, rebellion, exile, make it all. Through his technique, he invented this Byronic hero consciously. He was of the opinion that people should be free with their life and with whatever they did. This can easily be tied back to his own life. Always, he really did whatever he wanted to do. His book was an open secret. He used sarcasm and fought back the negative critiques about his poetry. Lord Byron's poems reflect and represent the Romantic period and reveal the true inner nature of Byron. Like other poets of Romantic age, he was unpredictable but charming, full of romance and heroism. Among his best known works, we have Don Juan, and in shorter poems, as a lyric, She Walks in Beauty. Now let me quote lines from his poem She Walks in Beauty to understand Byron in a better way. I quote, "She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. And on that cheek and over that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent." Now you see, in this poem, She Walks in Beauty, which is perhaps the most famous of Byron's short poems, and it was written when on 11th June 1814, Byron attended a fashionable party at Lady Sitwell's and met her for the first time there, his cousin Lady Wilmot Horton. The young lady wore a mourning dress, and it was the contrast between her youthful beauty and her sombre dress. He wrote it the same evening, this poem, and it was included in his 1815 collection Hebrew Melodies. This poem is written in iambic tetrameter, a style typically used for hymns. This makes perfect sense because the Hebrew Melodies collection was intended to be literally a collection of Old Testament themed melodies. Lyrics were to be provided by Byron and music by rabbinical student Isaac Nathan. Nathan's music was intended to reflect the spirit and style of old Hebrew folk songs. Their collaboration was encouraged by Byron's friend Douglas Kinnaird. Another poem, My Soul is Dark. I quote, My soul is dark, O quickly string the harp I yet can brook to hear, and let thy gentle fingers fling its melting murmurs over mine ear. If in this heart a hope be dear, that sound shall charm it forth again. If in these eyes there lurk a tear, it will flow and cease to burn my brain. The poem My Soul is Dark is about the narrator and his love affair with music. It is clear that the narrator is depressed and he expresses his despair in the poem, but in the midst of all that despair, all that darkness, there seems to be a hint of hope that is brought along with the music. The first sentence, My soul is dark, straight away sets the tone of the poem as melancholic. Another poem, When We Two Parted, is really romantic in all manners. It has got some connection with his own life also. He says, When we two parted in silence and tears, half broken hearted to sever for years, pale grew thy cheek and colder thy kiss, truly that hour foretold sorrow to this. The dew of the morning sunk chill on my brow, it felt like the warning of what I feel now. Thy woes are all broken, and light is thy fame. I hear thy name is spoken, and share in its shame. Now you can see that this poem, written in 1816, When We Two Parted, it conveys in simple terms author's sorrow at the loss of his beloved. This poem is highly autobiographical because elsewhere Byron has written about this incident too. When he says we two in the title, he talks about Byron and Lady Frances, who had some kind of affair in 1813. According to Byron, he spared her. Notice the word spared, which means he ended up not consummating his relationship with her. Byron, who was famous for so many connections with ladies and men, physically active, when he spared someone, he claims that he has got a separate kind of love for the lady. The speaker mourns even more because their love had been a secret and he must mourn alone. The tone is one of lonely sadness. To sum up, a poet like Byron, it's not easy. Poet who belongs to younger romantics. Poet who gave a new definition to romantic literature. Poet who himself became an icon. A man who was known for his charm to both the genders. A man who influenced the contemporary society to that extent that his name became a mania. So, his poems, they give you messages. His poems, they are there to entertain you and to understand what the poetry is. I will just end by two quotes by Byron, what he said. Number one, he gave a message and said, "They never fail who die in a great cause." And the second, a very important message, he said, "Always laugh when you can, it is a cheap medicine." Now, Byron, as a poet, as a man is there in the memory, is there in the literature. He is a universal figure, not for an age, but for ages. So enjoy reading Byron, and thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala. Thank you.